First of all, I agree with Mr. Higgins, which is why Republicans just voted to raise the debt limit by $1.5 trillion. But I remind him that if your family's spending itself into debt and you need to ask the bank for an increase in your credit card limit, you damn well better have a serious discussion about what's gotten you into this mess and make a plan to get out of that mess. That's what the Republican bill does. If the Democrats don't like it, they can strip all of the measures out in the Senate and send it back to us, and then it goes to conference and we have discussion, that family discussion. That's what this whole Capitol building is all about, discussing our differences and reaching a common direction on behalf of the American people. Now, to answer the ranking member, that the term woke is not one of the right. It came from the left. It is a toxic combination of socialism and racism. And the reason that the left doesn't like it being used today is because it's already been discredited in the eyes of an overwhelming majority of Americans. I'm sorry, but his party has made that bed, and now they're going to have to sleep in it. Once again, I would warn him that you cannot spin the economy. Everybody knows how the economy is doing in their own lives, and trying to gaslight them never works. Whenever the left is taking control, you see the same economic pathologies: rampant homelessness, sky-high taxes, failing businesses, and ultimately fleeing families. I've seen that myself. I live in California, and if you just look at the census numbers, you can see what people believe is better for the environment to raise their families. What my Democratic colleagues don't seem to understand is that government cannot put a dollar into the economy that it first hasn't taken out of that same economy, and it can do so in only one of three ways that I know of. You either raise taxes, that reduces the current standard of living, it suppresses productivity. Borrowing, that crowds out capital that would otherwise be available to loan to consumers to make consumer purchases or businesses to expand jobs. It incurs enormous interest costs, and ultimately it's got to be paid back anyway through future taxes, which reduces people's future standard of living. And then finally, you have inflation, pushing money into the economy that's unsupported by productivity, and that in turn reduces the value of the dollar and increases prices. Can any of our panelists tell me any other possible way government spending can be paid for? I guess it turns out all that free money isn't so free. It's actually very expensive, and people are paying it back every day at the gas station, at the grocery store, and in their paychecks. So the central question then is what we're spending. Now, we just heard that raising taxes to fund more social programs is sound policy. They always tell us that socialism is caring and sharing and taking care of each other, and capitalism is dog-eat-dog selfishness. They've got it completely backwards. There's only one way to prosper in a free society. You have to figure out what somebody else needs and figure out how to get it for them better than they can do it for themselves. That's true whether it's sweeping a floor or designing an advanced microchip. Socialism is taking what one person has made by helping others and giving it to someone who is not. It's true, if I take $1 from Peter and give it to Paul, Paul's got an extra $1 to spend. He's $1 better off. But Peter, of course, has one less dollar to spend, and that's why socialism is so destructive, because you have now robbed both Peter and Paul of $1 of incentive to help each other. Peter, because he no longer profits by helping others, and Paul, because he no longer needs to. That is why socialism consistently produces poverty and misery wherever it's practiced. It destroys the natural incentives in a free society that encourages people to help each other the most efficient way that they can. And here's the rub. A free market is an amazingly democratic process because every consumer, every day, votes with every dollar they spend on what the economy will produce and what prices they're willing to pay. When government takes that dollar out of the economy, it transfers that decision from the consumer to the government. Instead of consumers deciding what they need, government makes that decision for them. So instead of using the dollar you've earned to support your family, government takes that dollar and spends it on an LGBT museum. Capital would otherwise go to its highest and best economic use, instead is used for its highest and best political use, something that is radically different. Mr. Ebel, what do subsidies do to stuff the economic ballot box and cause consumers to make inefficient decisions that they'd never make if they were getting accurate price information?
Thank you, Representative McClintock. That was an outstanding summary of how the economy works and what's wrong with government intervention and government taking taxes and spending it on things that don't create wealth. And I think Mr. Higgins mentioned that the economy grew at 4% in the 1990s, and that's because the policies were much closer to what you advocate than to what some others advocate. The economy was still benefiting from the Reagan tax cuts, the historic Reagan tax cuts, and I would point out that during most of the 1990s, the Republicans were in control of both the House and the Senate.